Your brand may be staying on top of current trends, but are you agile enough to stay relevant, resilient, and successful as customers, competition, and the world continues to change at a breakneck pace? I'm thrilled to share the newly revised version of my first book, The Agile Brand. I'm calling it The Agile Brand Revisited. It's been updated to reflect our continually changing world, and it provides 7 principles that form the backbone of an agile brand, offering detailed insights and actionable steps for incorporating them into your business strategy. This is the book that started it all, and I'm excited to share it with you. It's now available in print and digital formats and available everywhere. Learn more by going to the Agile Brand Guide website at www.agilebrandguide.com. Welcome to Season 4 of The Agile Brand with Greg Kihlstrom, where we discuss business agility through customer experience, employee experience, and digital transformation. I'm your host, Greg Kihlstrom. The Agile World podcast is brought to you by TEKsystems, an industry leader in full-stack technology services, talent services, and real-world application. For more information, go to teksystems.com. To read more about the topics discussed on this show, you can go to my website at gregkihlstrom.com and read my latest articles or get a copy of my latest book, Meaningful Measurement of the Customer Experience, now available on Amazon and other retailers. My name is Greg Kihlstrom, and I'm the host of the Agile Brand Podcast. Welcome to a special episode of the show brought to you by Attribution, an advanced multi-touch attribution company that empowers every marketer with the data to convert more buyers and maximize ROI. You can learn more about Attribution at www.attributionapp.com. Today we're going to talk about how both B2C and B2B marketers can utilize Google Ads for the greatest success, and how to overcome some of the challenges that recent changes have posed. To help me discuss this topic, I'd like to welcome Sean Marshall, a digital marketing consultant specializing in Google Ads for B2B SaaS companies. Sean, welcome to the show. Why don't we start with you giving a little background on yourself and your role at Attribution?
Yeah, thanks, Greg. I'm happy to be here. My name is Sean Marshall. I've been in search engine marketing, specifically managing Google Ads for roughly 14, 15 years now. Started on the technology side with a company called Web Trends, and then quickly moved into the agency side with a company called 3Q Digital, where I helped build the client services organization there until I decided to move into solo consulting with a heavy emphasis on B2B and fast-growing SaaS companies. Most recently, I've been working with the team over at Attribution, helping them manage their own Google Ads account and kind of grow that part of their business, since they fit the mold of my kind of ideal client partner. And then also collaborating with the team and kind of being their liaison in all things Google Ads, and kind of give them their feedback from somebody who kind of boots in the ground, so to speak, in the search space, and help them refine their product and keep making improvements.
Wonderful. Well, yeah, looking forward to talking about this subject with you. So, Google AdWords first launched in the year 2000, so quite a few years ago, and since then has undergone numerous changes. Some very beneficial to customers, and some that have caused the need for workarounds or other methods in order to maintain the same level of success. So, why don't we start by discussing the background, and for those that may be less familiar with some of the recent changes made to Google Ads. So the two biggest drivers of these changes are increased consumer privacy needs, as well as increased reliance on artificial intelligence tools within the Google Ads ad platform. Can you talk a little bit about each and how Google has adapted its platform to each need?
It's funny you throw out the year 2000, and I feel like, wow, I started in 2008, and it somehow was still late to the party, even though it feels like I've been doing this for a long time. I've seen a fair amount of changes over the years, but it certainly feels like it's taking quite a turn more recently. I mean, search has always been an intent focused platform, right? I mean, search marketers are out there buying keywords, capturing real life demand, fulfilling existing demand for people actually inputting what they want in the search box, and kind of deriving their ads and offers and experiences based off of kind of the intent of the searcher, and getting accurate insights into the intent of the searcher has always been kind of the backbone to creating and crafting the Google Ads strategy, right? Some things might be very simple, like I'm trying to buy a television as opposed to buying a car, right? It's very
Right.
useful to know who I'm advertising to in that moment in time. But really, the devil is always in the details and kind of the nuance in between, on the consumer side, maybe particular brand or particular size or particular model. And on the B2B side, where do you fit in? Do you have intent for a specific software, platform, tool, or system? Are you running kind of more informational searches, learning more about space? I think of the attribution example of, hey, am I looking to buy a multi-touch attribution platform or searching for what is multi-touch attribution, right? um,
Yeah.
what's ended up happening over time is, and this is maybe the cynic in me spinning it this way, is that Google's decided to obfuscate more and more of this information, particularly hiding actual search query data. We get to see a lower and lower percentage of the actual searches being run against the keywords that people are buying in their Google Ads accounts. And I think there's probably some legitimacy to the fact that Google is trying to enact some privacy measures. I think there's always been this kind of looming threat of governments kind of stepping in, and whether it's GDPR or any sort of kind of other legal sanction or restriction. I think that Google is maybe trying to stay a step out of the curve and kind of enact these privacies. It also just happens to help, and this is where the cynical part of me comes in. It helps to start to obfuscate more and more data points and put in these mechanisms that kind of restrict the control that the advertiser has over what they do, because it creates a greater dependence on Google's tools. Now, it
Right.
also creates a lot of inefficiency in the market, which is kind of step one. In the absence of those tools, you kind of get inefficiency in the markets, and Google kind of thrives on that inefficiency, because if you're not buying the right things, you're just spending money for the sake of spending money. It doesn't really pan out. But as the restrictions have gotten tighter, the AI tools have both gotten better in some respects with things like smart bidding, and also become more rampant in the form of RSAs and performance max and discovery campaigns and dynamic search ads and things like that. So the two have kind of gone hand in hand, where the data has become more sparse, the advertiser has less visibility, and things get taken away, and magically these AI powered solutions appear to make up the slack, but kind of have you operate in this kind of opaque world with not nearly as much transparency as you may have.
Yeah.
But you still get a crack at better performance thanks to these AI tools.
So, based on these two drivers, so the data privacy concerns and AI, what are the changes that you think have affected marketers the most?
Well, we like to point to the search query reports. Over the years, I've always asked, anytime I meet a search marketer for the first time, whether it's interviewing to build a team or just a call and say, hey, what's your favorite report? And I always hope that somebody says the search query report. In my time at 3Q, I kind of helped the team devise this alpha beta methodology and the whole concept of single keyword ad groups, where you knew exactly what somebody was searching at a given moment in time. You could create hyper tailored experiences with perfect ads and perfect landing pages that are curated to align with that person's intent. And the way to do that is to look at your search query report. So I think the first thing that people will point to is probably that, hey, the search query data is not available anymore, which makes your targeting less on the nose, so to speak.
Yeah.
But what's really compounded this and really made it problematic more than ever is that the lines between match types have been blurred and in some cases just completely obliterated. Once upon a time, if I bought a keyword an exact match, I would show for that and only that. Then a little bit of loosening came into play to account for things like misspellings, right, or things like that, which was nice. It's nice to there's no reason not to kind of consolidate misspellings or pluralizations and whatnot. But now we've come to the end, and now she said in between them, then there was some kind of close semantic matching, like substituting the word software for system, for platform, for tool, which was fine. But now we've kind of we've crossed the threshold into total interchanging of words. Google likes to point to kind of these nicer, cleaner, consumer-oriented examples, like they do on their keyword match type FAQ page. The difference between lawn and grass, and service and company. But here we're talking about the removal of entire words that radically change that intent, and that's catastrophic, particularly for B2B marketers who I think live in this world of hyper nuanced intent where adding or removing a word completely changes the context of what you're searching for. I mean, just taking an example, I was working with a company where we're trying to buy keywords around developing and managing sales contracts for SaaS businesses, and buying a keyword like SaaS agreement, and just searching a search query report with however limited data I have, they've taken that keyword and turned it into SaaS, right, and just outright remove keywords and open you up and expose you to kind of risk that you may not want, matching to kind of things that are very, very close. I think it really struggles with acronyms, codes, if you're going after sort of like regulatory codes or things like that. It's very challenging. There's more obvious examples like turning the word application into app, which you always have to be thinking about. But that's the one that really kind of hurts you the most, and ties back to these changes. But on the other hand, they've given you access to these tools such as smart bidding, which will do a lot of that filtering and kind of optimization for you. Where given a certain goal, those keywords will eventually get phased out, but it doesn't happen as quickly as you might want it to. And you feel like you have a little bit less control. And what that's given rise to is really a need for better data inputs and kind of feeding these systems with the best information so they can learn faster, since it's no longer as easy as just saying, hey, I only want to match to this, and kind of slowly ramp up and slowly expand to broader, kind of trickier topics. Now you're kind of just blasting away from day one, and with the absence of better data, you're not going to do as an effective job as kind of corralling the waste and kind of bringing some of this stuff under control.
Yeah, well, and let's talk about that some more then, as far as what marketers can do in order to be most successful despite these challenges. You touched on getting better data and everything like that. Like what does that look like for marketers?
There's a couple obstacles. First and foremost, your traditional kind of pixel-based tracking systems are really falling victim to some of the privacy issues that we kind of touched on. I think those are very legitimate. Once upon a time, the problem was, Firefox rolled out a settings change where you were no longer accepting third-party cookies by default, and you were moving everything to first-party cookies. And Google worked their way around that by kind of passing everything through redirects and making sure that everything ended up aligning as being a first-party cookie. But now, with the rise in ad blockers and kind of stopping of scripts and the like, you have people kind of coming in off the street converting, and there's no real attribution available, and these tracking methods are not working as well as they used to. And some of those things that people just can't, you can't work around them. There's no way to kind of unblock an ad blocker. But what you can do in the interim is, at least for the people that are opted in and accepting cookies and kind of like playing the game like the way it used to be, you can try to gather as much information about that user. And I don't mean that in a creepy way of kind of getting into personally identifiable information, but I mean the various touch points that they make, and kind of the patterns of behavior that they exhibit, and ultimately load those back into Google. And I think that's the one most important thing that's come about, especially for B2B marketers, is the onset of offline conversion tracking, and basically trying to pipe as much information back into the system as possible. And whereas Google will not reveal information about its users to you, it does most likely make those associations themselves behind the scenes. So if you do have a set of users that take very specific actions, and whether it's completing a form first or downloading an extra piece of content, and then as they work through your sales pipeline, meet certain criteria to evolve into MQLs, SQLs, SALs, create real pipeline, and eventually become winners, loading that information back into Google then educates the system on what a qualified user ends up looking like. And even though you don't get to predict and see who you're serving that ad to in real time in the same way that you would, just by buying a keyword, Google is leveraging that data to make better and more informed decisions. And I will say, to their credit, their smart bidding algorithm, given the right inputs, does well enough that where you might see, say, a 10x increase in a bid on a random keyword at a random moment in time, it's usually accompanied by a 10x increase in the conversion rate for that particular user. So piping more data, more inputs into Google really helps, and basically feeding the information. And I won't even touch on the whole, big bad boogeyman argument or the tinfoil hat argument of Google's using that data to going to do some other nefarious things with your information. Who knows? They might end up becoming your competitor down the road. I know that's always been a fun topic, especially for companies like in the travel space, where Google's an information aggregator. But the net result is, if you want better results with Google Ads, you need to input a more robust and complete data set to not only teach the system how to do better calculations on just the math itself, which used to be the old value proposition of bidding platforms, but to train them on who the actual person is and how their intent then leads to certain actions.
And so, for those marketers that are listening to this and may not be quite as tech savvy, or just not involved in that, what does it actually mean? Like, what is required, or how do they feed back this data in the way that you're describing?
Yeah, so it all starts with the GCLID or the GCLID. It's the key that unlocks all of the data. I mean, really, I think it on average like a 25 to 40 character alphanumeric string that gets appended to every URL once an ad is served and in turn clicked. And the burden on the advertiser is to collect that GCLID and attach it to the session or record of a user that comes in the door, usually in the form of some phantom field on the first action that they take, or a cookie that then gets used down the line. Again, now you start talking about cookies, suddenly things can evaporate, they can leave, come back, switch devices. It's an imperfect system, but it requires the advertiser to capture that, and then create a series of events or kind of conversions that align with the different things that are predictors of value for the business. Some of them are very straightforward applications, and the B2B funnel alignment is pretty clean. You become a lead by filling out a form. Then you get passed over to your CRM, where you kind of meet whatever criteria you need to meet to kind of move your way through the chain, whether you took enough actions on the website, and I make an MQL, make that a conversion event, send it to Google in real time. You talk to an SDR and meet bank criteria to kind of take a meeting with an account executive. Boom, your sales accepted lead. You move through. You talk to an AE. You have enough pipeline potential that you actually get turned into an opportunity and have a real number attached to you. Then you send that stuff in. So really, the advertiser needs a system, a technology to capture that, attach it to the user record as they take different steps in Salesforce, and then ultimately pipe it back to Google. And this is, I think, where people kind of get, run into the most struggles. What systems do they have to feed that data back? There's a whole cottage industry of data analytics platforms that are popping up. Some people, the data takes circuitous routes. Where is it coming from Salesforce? Is it coming directly from your data warehouse? So are you needing a tool like a census to pull directly from your data warehouse and pipe it straight back to Google via API? Or is the data living in Salesforce, where you kind of need the native integration between Salesforce and Google? Is it a random CRM that nobody's ever heard of, where you might need some of these app to app solutions like a tray to do the work? But ultimately, the burden's on the advertiser to capture the GCLID and then create the events that they care about, and ultimately assign a value to that event. And that's kind of the cherry on top, or kind of the bow to tie it all together, is you create the conversion action in Google, you assign it a relative value to what it means to your business, and at the end of the day, you then kind of crunch the numbers and aggregate all the information to come up with a return on ad spend number that'll help you to move to value-based bidding. And I will add, the way to supercharge all of this and really take it over the top is to incorporate it with whatever attribution mechanisms and attribution schemes that you have, because ultimately, as the advertiser, you decide what a conversion is worth. And a conversion is only worth what it's worth in the context of all the various actions a user takes. And it's not just your Google Ads clicks, it's your Facebook, it's your direct visits, it's the actions of your sales teams, et cetera. So, it's a
Yeah.
lot to do, but it all starts with the GCLID.
Well, and just to elaborate on the last point, can you talk a little bit about the how doing this well with Google then feeds into that multi-touch attribution better, and so on and so forth?
Yeah, I mean, attribution is still kind of a giant ball of yarn, right? There's a lot of paths and actions that people take, and I think there can be endless debates about how you crunch the numbers. But I think ultimately you need to kind of pick something that you're comfortable with and stick with it. Any system that is entirely dependent on first touch attribution or last touch attribution, or even that's really dependent on using Google's conversion tracking, which takes credit for absolutely everything it touches, is missing the mark. Personally, I tend to favor more customized models that kind of take the context of the channel into consideration. And what I mean by that is if you're a first time attribution user and you run all of your data through an attribution platform such as Attribution app, what will invariably happen is all of your paid channels will get reduced credit for what they're contributing. And the inevitable conclusion will always be that the system will tell you, well, you need to cut your bids and cut your costs because your ROI for those channels is not as strong as you think it is. It's just the nature of the beast. Each individual advertising platform is taking full credit for everything it touches, which stands to reason that if a user clicked on a Google ad and they click on a Facebook ad, each of those platforms is counting those people as one.
Yeah.
Now, the challenge with that is if you're really taking that data at face value and saying, hey, well, we're going to go split the credit 50-50, or give the first touch 80% and the other one 20, you're inevitably going to basically shoot yourself in the foot and you're going to fall off completely. You bid down and you disappear. Now, in some cases, it's a zero sum game, like display networks, where either you get the impression or you don't. Or in other cases, like Google Ads, you kind of fall down the rankings, and there can be some kind of catastrophic consequences to falling down from position 2 to position 5. You're at the bottom of the page, you're not getting the same impression share probably as well, and you're getting a lower click through rate. So, what I tend to recommend to people is run various models and kind of assess the impact on what it's going to do to your advertising and to your traffic before you enact it. And more than likely, you should create models that are kind of tailored around your paid channels. You know, um, you have to ask yourself very difficult questions. Is a paid click coming in second place after an organic click worth giving credit to? And on the same token, is it worth giving credit to an organic click that comes after a paid click? Personally, I'm a paid guy. I say remove all free clicks from the equation. No organic, no email should kind of be taking credit away from paid, because again, if you're not there, then the click just never happens. Um, and I also think that you shouldn't overestimate the impact of down funnel activity on paid, right? Any paid click that happens after an opportunity has been created, for example, we're bringing all the concepts together, right? Where, hey, Google might come in and there'd be a click that happens in between an opportunity created and an account is closed. You can't suddenly just send the full value of the deal against that click back to Google and say, hey, optimize.
Right.
Now you should send it because Google needs to know that, hey, this is what a winning customer looks like, but you can't give it full credit for that things. I think you need to be very stringent on kind of how much credit you allocate there, because a user running their final search on something is probably not what was the final kind of tipping point in closing the deal. So
Yeah.
it's giving you an answer without giving you the answer, because in reality there is no answer. I think the most important thing to do is to leverage the models at your disposal with your attribution vendor and try to simulate what the results might look like, and make a decision that both helps you take into account the various pathways people are taking and the interactions of the different channels, but still being pragmatic about the fact that if you just roll this stuff out, hit go, you shouldn't be surprised that suddenly you're spending less and your volume is down and your revenue is down, because you know you're just going to be automatically bidding down on a lot of things, right? And that's just not helpful to anybody. So
Yeah.
apologies to everyone out there. That's an answer without giving you an answer, and that's really just, it depends.
It's the classic consultant answer. It depends, right? So, but it is what it is. But no, Sean, thanks so much for joining. This was great to talk through this stuff. For those listening, what's the best way for people to keep up with you as well as what you're doing with attribution?
Well, come talk to me directly. You can send me a direct message through LinkedIn. I've hung up my blogging hat. I have, if you want to read what old me used to write back in the day, I have a lot of stuff available still on the 3Q Digital website. But I'm always interested in talking shop and talking B2B. Just come and find me. I think I'm the only Sean Marshall, the digital marketing consultant that worked at 3Q, so I should be pretty easy to find. But thanks for having me, Greg. Really appreciate it, and hopefully we gave some insights to some people today.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, again, I'd like to thank Sean Marshall for joining the show. Thanks for listening to the Agile Brand with Greg Kihlstrom and this special episode of the show brought to you by Attribution, an advanced multi-touch attribution company that empowers every marketer with the data to convert more buyers and maximize ROI. You can learn more about Attribution at www.attributionapp.com. See you next week. Thanks again for listening to the Agile Brand with Greg Kihlstrom podcast, brought to you by Tech Systems. If you enjoyed the show, please take a minute to subscribe on your podcast channel of choice and leave us a rating so that others can find the show more easily. You can access more episodes of the show at www.theagilebrand.show. To get a copy of my latest book, Meaningful Measurement of the Customer Experience, visit my website at gregkihlstrom.com. Until next week, stay agile.